I think I might die of embarrassment.
What?
I don't know. I wasn't arrested though, so that's good. It's a sad kind of statement, but you can love someone and treat them terribly. Like, we're all aware of this.
Straights will love it. Just for
It's
the PR.
for everyone.
It's for everyone.
And if you don't read it, you're homophobic.
Yeah.
Sounds like my personal idea of hell. I'm very aware that it's not the usual run.
Well, hello and welcome to Hot Nerds. I'm your host, Kieran Hennessy, and with me today is Madeleine Gray. I'll be calling her Maddie generally, if that's okay.
That's absolutely okay. Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. A quick introduction for Maddie. Madeleine Gray is a writer and critic from Sydney. Her debut novel, Green Dot, that was a beautiful moment. I felt it. It's been published in over 13 territories, most recently the UK. We were just talking about that edition popping out. It's shortlisted for Debut Book of the Year at the British Book Awards and won the Matt Ritchell Award for New Writer of the Year at the 2024 ABIAs, which is the Australian...
Like Book Industry Association, I think.
So I'm slowly getting into the industry, but not quite an insider yet, it seems.
Yeah, it's kind of like, how would I describe the Arbias? It's kind of like...
the Arbias.
It's, what's the one that musicians are obsessed with?
The arias.
That one, yes. And so I have an Arbia now, and my partner has an aria.
No way.
And we're absolute wankers, and we have our little awards on our mantelpiece.
What's her part in the music industry?
She's a singer-songwriter, so she won for, like, I think it was Best Independent Release ages ago.
Amazing. What's her artist name?
Bertie Blackman.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, she's
there
the
you
lady
go.
you met.
Yeah. I didn't put the first name to that.
Yeah. Cute.
You heard it here. Definitely not first, folks. I'm one of the last to know. Well, I love that. We've got an aria and an arbia in the house.
One of them's slightly more well-known, but that's fine.
Depends on if you're a reader or a musician.
Sure. Do kids ever grow up thinking, like, one day I'll get an arbia?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, and I still stumbled over it. So maybe we can chat to their PR crew.
I think so.
We get some
We'll
marketing
have a chat with
vibes, you know. But I'm sure they're doing a fantastic job because they selected you, so they must be, right?
Great taste, yes.
Continuing on, this is a multifaceted and a jaunty introduction we're giving. You know, we the beauty of podcast format, we can go all over the map when we're not supposed to.
Absolutely.
In 2019, Maddie was a CASRB critic. Before we move on, what does CASRB mean?
It's the Sydney Review of Books, which is like a really excellent literary criticism website. And they do this thing once a year where the Copyright Association or whatever.
Oh, so that's the CA?
Funds, yeah. I think 3 writers a year to do like long form literary criticism.
On one book or like a general
they
movement?
They get to do like
industry?
3 essays, and each one tends to be on one book. But it's as a literary critic, there are not opportunities like that in Australia. It's a really good one.
So hence the CA being like, all right, we have to fund this.
Yeah, because you actually get money for it.
Yeah, because it's a big, it sounds like if it's long form, it's going to be a bit of an investment for the writer. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool. Fantastic. All right, so in 2019, she was a CASRB, Sydney Review of Books, emerging critic. And in 2021, she was a finalist for the Walkley Pascal Prize for Arts Criticism. Madeleine has an MSc in English from the University of Oxford and a PhD in literary theory from the University of Manchester. Her second novel, which is not Green Dot. Green Dot's the debut, and you actually mentioned that this is going to be one of the last pieces of media that you do on this, because your second one, Chosen Family, will be published later this year.
Yes.
In fact, I happened to meet Maddie when she was celebrating with beers when the day she signed Chosen Family, which you couldn't even tell me the title of.
I couldn't.
So thank you for being here. Welcome, Madeleine Gray.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a very good introduction. I liked the organic nature.
Organic, beautiful. AKA not preparing as well as we could have, but
very postmodern.
Still nailing it. You know? A little bit of the energy of Green Dot, I feel.
Chaos.
Yeah. Indeed. Speaking of chaos, how was Hong Kong?
So much fun. So yeah, I was invited to the Hong Kong Writers Festival for a few days, and I've toured in the UK and the US, but never in Asia. And Hong Kong is just so much fun, and the food is delicious. And basically, I just started my day with a lot of dumplings and continued in that realm for the whole day.
Kept the theme going.
And it's a fascinating place because I don't know, because you have a lot of expats in Hong Kong as well. So a lot of Australians live there. So you've got a lot of Australians coming to events to see Australian people when they come. But it's not necessarily the Australian people who would come to events to see me in Sydney. For example, a lot of like business people and like people at the consulate. And I think there were some police people there. And that's not my usual audience. So it was quite fun actually to talk as I do in a different
Context
kind of space.
Yeah. And did you have to monitor anything that you were saying or letting out?
I thought that I might monitor it, but then I thought it would be too funny not to.
Yeah.
So I think I was doing this one big talk with a bunch of very fancy people in suits, and I quoted from the Hera Lindsay Bird poem called Keats is Dead, So Fuck Me From Behind. They really liked that one.
A classic.
And then I hope none of them read the acknowledgements, because I think a few of them were police, and the acknowledgements say...
I saw the ACAT.
Yeah. And also bottoms and tops, we all hate cops, so... yeah, I don't know. I wasn't arrested though, so that's good.
Yeah, you got to be careful there after everything that went down in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Not naming any political movements and parties in power, but other than that spectre or shadow over Hong Kong, it sounds like you had a wonderful time.
Yeah, and it was really nice to meet other writers from around Hong Kong and Asia, and yeah, it's just so much fun. Wherever you go in the world, when you meet writers, they're just the same. They just want to talk to you about books and drink wine. That's it. Yeah.
Well, we will be heading to a pub after this, so we'll be combining both of those. But the chat for now, for our dear listeners, although I really wouldn't mind if we got a bit more intoxicated for the mic. In fact, season 2 might be slightly different format.
Good, yes, good energy.
Sense. Yeah. So you've toured UK and America, and obviously, I believe you were at Sydney Writers Fest last year as well, and obviously have done other events throughout Australia. How do all the regions compare on the road? And you've said the writers are kind of similar, but you're obviously in very different contexts each time. And does the book get received in similar ways? Is that kind of, the things that it speaks to, is that kind of a little bit universal, or is there, do you pick up on any differences?
I mean, I think when people are interviewing you about a book, generally speaking, they want one or two thematic kind of
hooks,
soldering points. Exactly. And so for this book, it's because it's about an affair. So the figure of the other woman is the through piece in every kind of PR tour I've done. I have become like the international advocate for mistresses, which I didn't think about when I wrote this book.
And we're not talking about the BDSM kind of mistresses, where this is the adulterous
Not
mistresses.
so much. Yeah. But respect, but no.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of the main thing. I think in Australia, the vibe, I think, has been really excited surprise, because the book, it's a debut novel and it has weirdly done quite well. And so I think everyone's a bit like, what?
Are you a bit like that as well?
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, everyone's a bit in disbelief, as am I. We're all just like, this is going well.
Indeed.
So that's fun. And then in the UK, I actually sold the book first in the UK, and there's a bit of it set in the UK. So the English people really like it because they like being made fun of. So usually when I do talks in the UK, I just mock British people.
And they seem to love it.
They love it.
Fits the self-deprecating style of the prose as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're so here for it. And then the US is a totally different kettle of fish with sensibilities that are less aligned with my own.
Does that make it all the more fun?
It makes it more fun for me. But yeah,
maybe not the publicists over there trying to tour you.
Yeah, exactly. Just swearing and stuff like that. They're not as here for it. But, you know,
They need to suck it the fuck
I
up.
still say cunt a lot. And they just have to, deal with it.
That's what sells.
They're always like,
Cunt sells.
yeah, cunt sells.
And are you noticing, you know, before we get into some of the more of the book, a bit of the craft, a bit of, you know, what's up next, some other random bits, when were you in America?
I was there in 2023. Yeah.
Are you going any places where the book bans were really harsh? Did you pick anything like that rub up against your
No, luckily,
experience?
I mean, not luck has nothing to do with it. Book bans are fucking terrible, but no, I was very much positioned in cities that did not feel like a lot of the US. We're talking New York, you know, California, that vibe.
Yeah. Would you want to do a regional tour in America?
I would love to do a regional tour in America. I think it's like more important now than ever that people who say things that are not approved by the powers that be go to those towns, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a regional book tour through America and just DJ at night and then do book chats during the day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
From Tennessee to Florida.
Yeah. But I've had a lot of support, which has been really nice, from really small, like, independent bookstores in small towns in the US. That clearly the towns themselves are not particularly left-leaning, but these bookstores are little, like, oases for the people in the area who think a bit differently. And that's been really nice to see, like, the book kind of popping off in some random place in Alabama. That's fun.
And I guess the only things that would make people in certain areas like that be a bit off it, basically we've got a adultery theme and I guess sexuality.
Yep.
Those are kind of like the two things, and maybe a bit of the anti-capitalist.
I was going to say the anti-capitalist kind of agenda.
That's a pretty through line as well.
Yeah.
That I guess I feel all the time. So I'm like, is it a theme or is it life?
Yeah. It's like something Hera would say. That was uncanny.
Yeah. I finished it 2 days ago. She's still in my mind, perhaps. Well, on that, you know, we can jump straight. You know, there are those are your big through lines. You've said that being, you know, the other woman kind of that's a bit of a PR thing that has kind of stuck as well.
I mean, it is just the book, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On the bisexuality side, I wanted to, you know, chat about that perhaps first as well, because ding ding, that is me as well. But also, it's great that it seems like you can't tell what sexuality any characters are until you just mention something. And I really appreciate that that tone that you take with, you know, no one has to be identified too overtly. I mean, maybe this is a spoiler, but even someone that Hera is related to, you just drop something later in the book and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How intentional was all that? Is it just a natural reflection of you and, you know, classic debut work will explore some of that stuff that
what you know.
feel? Yeah. You know, I mean, I know it is fiction and I know you wrote it, you know, not, it's, because when you read it, I'm like, some of this sounds like it could be, you've adapted journal entries, but then I read up and I'm like, no, this is pulled out of complete fiction.
I did make it up, yeah.
I didn't ruin anyone's marriage.
No. I mean, maybe like unintentionally.
Yeah. Not that you know about.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. So yeah, when you're writing about, like, for example, the bisexuality, is that it's just natural to represent characters in that way for you, or was there a bit of craft in that?
Well, look, I mean, I think that most people are queer. That's just my take. But in this book, I really wanted the main character to be bisexual because I've read a lot of affair novels with younger women usually and older men, and they are almost always heterosexual relationships that kind of then play into the dynamics of gender inequality and gender tropes in certain ways. And with Hera, I wanted her to be bi because previous to meeting Arthur, the guy she has the affair with, she has only dated women, and so she is fully prepped in the lexicon of queer discourse. And in some ways, that gives her a certain power in the sense that knowledge is power. But in another way, it kind of gives her a false sense of agency, because she thinks, because I'm queer, me fucking a straight guy is ironic and funny, and doesn't.
The bit.
It's the bit. And so there's a kind of a tension there. But then on a more personal level, I wanted to see a bisexual woman represented who was dating a straight man, to show that she's still bisexual when she's dating a man.
It doesn't negate
the
entire history of her life.
Exactly.
And internal life.
Exactly. Yeah. And the way, because the whole book is written from her perspective, we get like insights into her mind all the time of how people in public kind of see her on the street and how they react differently to her when she's with a man as to when she's with women. And these are all experiences, yes, that I certainly have had, and I hadn't seen them in a book before. So that was very important to me.
And it's also interesting reading that, because even as someone who's queer but mostly been in, or basically always been in a, what do you call it?
Hetero passing kind of
relationship.
Yeah.
But knowing that what that feeling is, especially when I was younger and like first moved to Sydney, and you see queer couples, and it's like, yeah, there is that kind of performative element, because ally, but like, just we're humans walking past, like, why does it matter? But like, there's that, that layer of like, do I have to show support just to a stranger on the street?
Yeah, exactly.
And then other people who are like, turn their nose up, or so I actually remember that line going,
oh yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's more like as well when I see queer couples on the street, and I'm either, if I've been with a man, or if I'm not with a partner, or if I'm just by myself. I mean, I think I look pretty gay now, but I've looked more femme in the past, and I always kind of wanted to like grab the gay people and be like, I'm one of you. I don't look like it, but I am.
Please accept me as we walk past each other for a moment.
Give me the nod.
Yeah, give me that. Say it back. There's another layer to this as well that I heard you mention. It was either when you were on the Shameless podcast or Missing Perspectives with Hannah Divany, but around the fact that she then has, although she's got less experience with women, even potentially romantic with the next, but when it comes to Arthur, there's no experience with men, and so she's still, like you said, there's that feigned confidence, but when it comes to the man, it's a new relationship in a way, and she's feeling things that are different to what she's used to, and it's interesting watching her kind of come to realize, especially when they first sleep together and all that, how like massive it is, how earth-shattering it is, and some of the questions that could come up on that for her. But I guess because you're also probably you're not trying to justify her actions, but she's justifying them to herself through the prose and the first person narration. And I feel like that was also helpful for her to kind of get sucked in, because it is a new experience in that way.
Absolutely. And I feel like maybe had Hera had male partners before, she would be more aware
of the fuckery.
The fuckery. Yeah, exactly. But
that is not inherent. It's just sometimes it's just common. But
it's learned. But yes, she might be kind of more aware that she's being played with and gaslit. So there's that. But then there's also the kind of, and I want to stress this, there's the joy in playing with gender roles as well, which she really quite likes. So like now she's finding herself in this hetero passing relationship. She's like, would it be funny if I baked him a cake? And it kind of is.
It's like shall I just put my toe in the trad wife?
Yeah. It's a fun experience to have. It kind of, I was rereading the other day what was it for? Some essay I'm writing. Jack Halberstam's Female Masculinity, Have you read that?
No, but
Excellent book looking at, you guessed it, female masculinity. And Hera's kind of doing the opposite of that. It's all, like gender is a drag, and she is having such fun with changing up the layers and mixing up the artifice, and that can be sexy too. So Arthur's gender is actually crucial to the relationship that develops, not in any good or bad way, but just it's different. Yeah.
And is there an element, this isn't necessarily like a romance. She feels intense romance with him, but it's kind of poisoned from the beginning, and et cetera, et cetera. And given the rise of romance in the industry, I mean, it's always been massive, but it's just a slightly extra spotlight. And you've subverted the other woman trope in an adulterous situation. But I was also interested by the fact that he was so plain and slightly effeminate. And, he's not the, Henry Cavill kind of muscular guy who then, purrs to you. It's which we love. At times.
Sure.
But, and I was wondering, does that make her, but there's also like, masculine femininity and like, butch women, so you can be attracted to any style of person.
Any style in any gender.
Exactly. Yeah. Is there a reason why you made him so plain?
I mean, I think with Arthur, what I wanted to do was create a love interest whose like primary appeal to Hera, at least, is that he's not terrible.
The bar
is so low. And so when she meets him, he doesn't, and I think she says this in the book, he doesn't say anything sexist, queerphobic, racist in like 10 minutes. And she's like, holy shit.
Tick and tick.
Oh my God, I'm in love with him. Because it's honestly, it's sometimes conversations like that happen very rarely in life with straight men. And so she is enamored by this guy because he has the same kind of political inclinations as her. And then on another level, she is enamored with him because he is a normie. And that is
the stability of the older normal.
Yeah, he has a house maybe. We know he has a wife who's really stable. And he has a job, and he kind of doesn't seem to, well, to Hera's mind at the beginning at least, be going through a major existential crisis. And she thinks, oh, that sounds nice. When your mind's in chaos all the time and you come across someone who seems to not have angst, it's like, oh, give me some of that.
I want to be part of that.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
There you go. And was, in terms of her falling for him as well, because you didn't add much more to his, like he has obviously a full character, but he does, he's not some dream man.
Yeah.
And, he is treating her like kind of shit the whole time anyway. So was that something that helped show the reader, at least, if not Hera, show the reader that, there's nothing else to this other than some delusions that she has that she's misplacing with him? Or was it like a genuine love? Because it's, again, you've got an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
So the reader is trying to navigate that as well as she.
Yeah, I genuinely think, and I had to think this, I think, to write the book in any way believably, that Arthur loves Hera. I do think he loves her, and I think she loves him. I don't think those loves are matched in any way. They're not coming at the same level. And I also feel that, Arthur exists in a state of cognitive dissonance where he does love her on one level, but then on another level, he also not enough to do anything about it. And I think those things can coexist. I think it's a sad kind of statement, but you can love someone and treat them terribly. Like, we're all aware of this. Happens regularly. And Arthur does that. But it is also a romance in a way. Them courting and all their banter. It's like the early stages of any relationship when you're teaching someone your language and translating your life for them. And that's kind of that intimate coalescing of minds, and that happens with Hera. But then, obviously it all goes to hell in a handbasket. Yeah.
That's not a spoiler.
No,
That's, you know.
it's on the first page. Yeah.
On the, you know, so we talked about a bit of the sexuality stuff. Yeah, she's also dealing with the fact that she has to go to work.
The worst.
So that's been something that you've obviously felt. And remind me, this was written mostly during the pandemic?
Yep. All during the pandemic.
And you were working at the time, but grappling with that?
Yeah, so while I was writing it, I was working in a bookshop and I was also doing my PhD. But
and I do want to ask about the unionizing.
Yes, let's get there. Yeah. But I had previously worked maybe one office job, which was like journalism adjacent. It's not community moderator like Hera's job, but I'd had like 8 months experience working in an office. I actually I personally kind of love offices for that kind of same ironic.
The little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Like the details where you're like,
yeah, I'm like, let's circle back. It's just so funny to me, like, it's funny.
It's its own culture.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You know, you
it
just
gets taken slightly too seriously.
Yeah,
and
like
you're having fun with it.
Meet you by the water cooler.
Tell me about your weekend every Monday.
Yeah, how was your hike? So
that's another in the book.
Okay, yes. So I had worked in that kind of realm, but also a lot of my friends have worked corporate jobs and continue to, and so mostly I gleaned from them. I would just ask them about their lives and the culture that they existed in.
And then poked fun at it.
But I think, I mean, that's the book is really like a I always fuck up saying this word, Bildungsroman, in the sense that it's a coming of age story. And Hera is
Bildungsroman, like, it's not Roman buildings.
It's like Bildungsroman, like Roman meaning book, and then Bildungs, I think, as in like growing and learning.
Which language is that?
I think it's German, maybe, because the other one is Kunstlerroman, which is the story of the artist growing.
This is what happens when you do a PhD in literature.
Yeah, someone's probably going to watch this and be like, she's got it all wrong. So
you still got the PhD. It's
don't check.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a story of her coming to, not maturity per se, but growing up. And a huge part of that for her is reconciling her political beliefs with also existing and subsisting in the world. And I think anyone living in their early 20s has had to realize that marrying those two things is not always amicable. Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, and then again, the other through line is the adultery itself. But I'm also thinking that when, you know, reading about the feelings that she has around work and capitalism, it's a similar tone that she takes initially, at least, to like the flippancy of like chatting to Arthur and it's like, oh, none of this really matters until it does.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all funny and ironic until you realize that you've slipped into a well of earnestness and you can't get out.
Have you ever committed too much to the bit yourself?
Have I ever committed too much to the bit? Oh, absolutely.
After years go by and you're like, wait, what just happened?
God, like, I'm not going to name any names. One time I dated someone for 6 months and I then broke up with them and I was like, what was that?
And it started as like,
kind of like yeah.
Let's fuck this person.
Yeah, I was like, this could be fun. And then I was like, oh no.
It's not fun.
What have I done? And I certainly sometimes just like move countries. I'm like, I'll just move. I feel like that's a bit of a bit.
And again, Hera does that.
She does that, yeah.
You know, quite literally.
Yeah.
And then commits to the bit until the world collapses.
Yeah, sometimes the world collapsing ends the bit.
Sometimes that's all it will take.
It have to take.
Yeah. So nothing else will do it except a pandemic. How did you feel about putting a pandemic in the books? I know a lot of people try to avoid it and don't really want to set anything in that period. Was it because she wouldn't have come back otherwise? What was it? Was it a literary tool for you, or was it just this matches the timeline?
Yeah, on a very basic level, it matched the timeline, so it would have been annoying not to do it. But you know, you can easily just take something out. It's fiction. Mostly, it worked I think, on a plot level, because when you are in love and desiring someone, melodrama becomes your state of being. And a global pandemic is maybe like the most melodramatic thing to happen.
Just short of a World War III.
Yeah, like the world closed down.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
Yeah.
And so Hera's going through immense heartbreak and yearning while being completely isolated from her friends, family, and anyone who could support her. And so, you know, when you're in love and yearning, you feel alone, but she's literally alone with no possibility of comfort. So that kind of worked really well. And I kind of wanted to see that period of the novel as a kind of like a little stream of consciousness blip. Like, you know, sometimes I don't know your mental health status, but sometimes when you go into a bit of depressive hole, you can just emerge like 3 months later and be like, where was I?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens to her in that point. And I feel like, not so much in the plot because she comes home earlier, but COVID was a bit like that. We all went through this insanely traumatic thing, and then now
over a few times,
and now we've kind of
not talking about
blanking
it
it
enough.
Yeah, it's weird that we don't all discuss it more. And yeah, I wanted to do it in fiction because it's easy enough to do in fiction because you're just one person writing a book. It's not that hard. Whereas if you are making a film or a TV show, there's so much more money involved, so many more stakeholders, and people saying this show needs to sell and people don't want to be reminded of that time.
Well, on that note, you are writing your first screenplay or for an adaptation, is that correct?
Yes. So the book is being adapted into a TV show. I was going to write the screenplay and then I started doing it. And then I was like,
I'm not committing to this bit.
I was like, no, not actually my energy. Someone who likes doing this should do this.
Yeah.
And also because I wanted to write my second book and it just takes
time.
A lot of time.
Focus.
I'd never had so many notes on something in my life. And I was just like, no. These notes aren't worth it.
Yeah. Well, plus because, if it's your first, you were literally looking up like, how to
100%
format screenplay.
Yeah. It really helps when you get that what's it called? It's like
Scribe.
That app thing.
Bit of software.
Yeah. It makes it look very profesh.
Yeah.
But
the old school typewriter font.
Exactly. Like your Truman Capote or something. It's fun. But yes, no, the TV show is happening, and that is very exciting. I don't know if they'll include the pandemic. I'm not sure. I'd like it if they did, but
I guess it is. As you said. It's an effective plot tool, and for me it was effective because she self-isolates both by moving and also just she can't seem to genuinely connect with a lot of people other than Arthur, who she also can't really genuinely connect with, but she feels like it's genuine. So she's done all this to herself, and then she's still isolated before the pandemic while she's in the UK. She has that housemate that she barely reveals anything. And I noticed that, I'm sure every reader noticed that she doesn't reveal much of herself generally to anyone. So to then have her already on that level of extreme isolation, then layer on top of it the forced pandemic element, because you couldn't really get any more isolated than what she was unless you moved to a shack in the middle of the desert, right?
Yeah.
Or have a pandemic. So I think it worked because of that, but sometimes I'm like, oh, pandemic is real in a book.
Yeah, no, I know. It feels a bit strange. I feel like a lot of TV shows, like procedurals, just like do it in one episode. They do a really quick. God, I'm having such a brain freeze right now. Montage.
Yeah.
They'll be like masks, vaccine.
It's like
done.
2 years later.
Yeah.
And then, so we've got, she's having all these struggles with isolation, and it seems like, this book is often, I've seen in the PR and people's reviews talking about it as part of the sad girl movement and all that, but whatever that means in terms of reviews and genres, etc. There is that millennial Gen Z feeling of getting stuck in inertia and not knowing what values are real anymore, and so that seems to feed into all this a lot. And was that just something you wanted to just express for yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel like, so when I was writing this, as I said, I was also doing my PhD, and it looks at feminist literary theory, and a lot of the theorists that I was looking at were dealing with these kinds of issues, i.e. A feeling of flatness in late capitalism, like melancholy, basically, and kind of depression because of the structures of the world, not necessarily because of anything biological. And
which is completely normal and rational.
Yeah, it's a very,
a natural human response.
Depression as a rational response to living in late capitalism. I'm pretty sure Sally Rooney wrote that, actually. But I was looking at the work of Sara Ahmed, who's an amazing feminist phenomenologist, and then Lauren Berlant, who writes about the cruel optimism of living in late capitalism, like the cruel optimism. So the idea that, you're promised so many things and then you work and work and work to get them, and then you don't get the thing you want, but because you've already spent so much time, you just keep doing it. It's a sunk cost fallacy. And so that's kind of the way that I see a lot of people existing in relation to the world today, just putting in hours and hours and hours of their life into something that's not necessarily giving them sustenance on any real level back. And so I saw Green Dot as a way I could kind of synthesize all that cultural theory that I was reading and felt really interested in into something that is actually, hopefully, fun to read. Because cultural theory is many things, but it is not fun to read.
It's like brilliant nonfiction authors and researchers, but still,
like, this is good stuff, but like there's only so many times, I can read about hermeneutics before I punch myself in the face.
I've never read about it because I don't know what hermeneutics means.
Fair, yeah.
And I'm presuming phenomenology.
That's actually a Chapel Roan song.
Is that the study of phenomena?
Phenomenology. Yeah, basically. It's kind of like the way that we interact with the world, our orientation to things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not about phenomena?
Not so much.
Okay.
But I mean, kind of.
I like to clarify for all our listeners these.
Once again, someone who's going to be a professor in phenomenology and like write in and be like, Madeleine Gray does not understand.
If you want to write in about that, you can be a guest on the podcast. Tell me all about phenomenology.
It's like I just had a flashback. There was one time I did my thesis in undergrad, and it was about androgynous lesbians, but
my favorite.
Yeah, good topic. But it used a lot of Lacan, like Jacques Lacan, who's a psychoanalyst, and he's really hard to understand. So hard, in fact, that I definitely didn't understand him, but I still wrote about him. And I remember getting my paper back, and the professor, Bruce Gardner, great professor, he gave me a fine mark, but he just said, everything this thesis says about Lacan is wrong. And I was like, you got me.
But you must have articulated it well enough to get a decent mark.
I don't know. I think he was just like...
Bruce was just like, I like you, it's okay.
Yeah, he was like, it's good vibes, but like factually so incorrect.
If Bruce ever had me as a high-level literature student, I don't know what I'd be writing. So yeah, I'm sure it was lovely. So those are some of the main pillars of the book. And then just quickly back to the adultery element. And again, the bisexual or queer elements, where in our community, so I'm part of both poly and queer life, and it's a big conversation, especially these days. And adultery is obviously, sits outside that, but there are overlaps in terms of certain angles on it. And is there anything in terms of polyamory? 'Cause it doesn't really, it's not a topic in the book.
No.
But is anything like that? Did you have anything like that initially, or that's something that Hera wanted to chew through, or that she was ever part of a polycule before that. Like none of that seemed to, like none of that's in her history or in the books to then guide her through, oh, how do I deal with a married man who doesn't understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think she is woefully unprepared for the situation that she is in. Perhaps if she had been in a polycule, she would be better equipped. But no, I think it was actually, it was really important that Arthur be hypothetically monogamous, because the idea of monogamy is such a kind of sacred idea in culture, especially straight culture, but all culture. And so, yeah, that needed to happen so that Hera could break something and so we could hate her, but also try and understand her. And if there were ground rules, you know, like if Arthur was actually allowed to sleep with Hera, then
the drama
not much of a story, is it?
Yeah. Is that something that you, I mean, in terms of honesty in the book? Because a lot of times I'm reading this, I'm like, how can you do that to the partner, where it goes on and on and on and on, and it's like, for me, like it's a natural thing to just, if you love, if you love two people, to just tell the truth. Because how, you know, even Hera talking about her parents and saying, you know, she lays it out early on, saying, I wish they'd divorced earlier. To then see that not play out with her relationship with a married man, where, you know, I'm sure other people are also going like, come on, man, just be honest. And it's interesting reading a book about adultery and then comparing that to like poly lifestyles, where the honesty is the thing that basically differentiates it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those ground rules.
Yeah, it's the trust. It's the trust and the honesty and the respect.
Yeah.
And when you
basic respect.
It's respect, yeah. And you're absolutely right. And it's just the sad thing, many sad things about adultery, but one is that the mistress is automatically then made complicit in this lie,
she has no
which
control
she didn't
over.
choose to make. But now she could choose to leave, absolutely, and yes, that is a fair point. But you know, she didn't do this; he did this. Yeah.
Moving on to a bit of craft. Well, I know I've been peppering that through, but also looking ahead to the next book. So remind us of the title.
It's called Chosen Family.
Intriguing. So why is it, well, first of all, why is it called Chosen Family? Another very queer term.
Yeah. It's a very gay book. It's about two.
I'm sure the straights will love it. Just on
it's
the PR.
for everyone.
It's for everyone.
And if you don't read it, you're homophobic. It's about two best friends, Eve and Nell, who meet in high school and become obsessed with each other. You know, those really intense friendships in early high school where you're not sure if you want to be the other person or want to be with them, or you know, very homoerotic / just erotic. And so they have this really intense relationship, and then lo and behold, they have a friendship breakup for some mysterious reason, which I think maybe every queer person I know has experienced.
With their bestie.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And then they kind of reconnect years later, and then the book follows them for like 18 years as their relationship, as they come kind of in and out of each other's lives. But the premise is, you know, chosen family, because, you know, the question is, how do you make a family if the biological one that you've been assigned to isn't giving you what you need? But also, when we think of our friends as family, how that can mean we can treat them worse, which is something that people don't talk about as much, because, you know, we want to be really happy about chosen family, but it can also have its complications. And then I probably should have started with this. Yeah, it would have been better to start with this.
Like this question or the
no,
episode?
This premise. Is
Sorry.
that, you know, both Hera and Hera. She's not in the next book.
Switch up.
Eve.
Well,
and
again,
Nell.
this is what we're moving. You're literally in the movement from this PR to the next PR.
Yeah, exactly. This is like the first time I've talked about Chosen Family on camera. Anyway, the two main characters in Chosen Family, who have names, both don't understand why you have to have a baby with someone that you're romantically involved with. they're like, why can't you just have a baby with your friend? You know, different ways of making family in that way. So the story is also about them literally doing that. And that's not a spoiler. So it's about chosen family in lots of different ways.
So that sounds like you're going to be really delving into just the concept of family and how it can come about. And
what we owe to each other when we think of people as always in our lives. When you commit to someone in that way, romantically or not, what do you owe to someone who is like a sister? Yeah.
Bit of honesty.
Bit of honesty, yeah.
For one.
Yeah. There's definitely some, I mean, both the characters are queer, so there's a lot more transparency, don't worry.
Yeah, lovely. and less marriage already happening.
Yeah, I don't think there's any marriage in the book.
You're done with that
Also,
after
I was trying to think
Green
the other day, I don't think there's one straight male character in it. Maybe someone has a dad.
That's a bit discriminatory. Come on.
I know, sorry. I think he has a name. I think he's called Mark. There you go.
Now, have you got similar like conversational prose in this one, or is it you got two characters? How have you approached, setting that, is it going between two dual POV? Are we third personing?
We're third personing, which is quite fun because writing Green Dot was so much fun because I was so in Hera's mind, but that also means you're limited in what you can reveal because you see everything through her tunnel vision.
Which works,
I think, for the book,
story,
but, wouldn't work for every story. And so for this one, it's quite fun because the narrator can have, has a little bit of a camp energy to my mind and kind of enjoys telling this story and can see, that they're omniscient. They can see into the minds of everyone. So we can always get a little insight into that character or that character. And, even just little side characters. It's fun to just delve into their mind for a page. Just check in with them, So that's been really fun. And I was really worried about if I could do that because I'd never written something so long in third person before. I didn't know if it would seem gimmicky or I didn't know if it would work, but...
Just because you didn't know if you could just execute.
Yeah. Just in terms of just confidence. Yeah, I was like,
And I guess on that note, we haven't talked about your origin story, but you weren't a writer. You're a book critic turned almost accidental writer, right?
Yeah.
So, for when you got into book criticisms because you love books and you love literature and you love writing in some form. How were you writing when you were younger?
I feel like I should be like, yes.
You don't know. This is pure honesty.
Pure honesty.
There's many pathways to becoming an author.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
I didn't really write stories. I think I definitely used to write songs. I was in a really shitty band called Voodoo Economics, and I would write...
Voodoo Economics.
Yeah.
Is that available anywhere?
I hope not. We would do mostly Dolly Parton covers and then my own original country songs.
Nice.
Interesting.
Can we get a little, are you in on the vocals? Or?
I think I might die of embarrassment. They all have an American twang though, which is interesting. So I did write lyrics. I was playing with rhyme from an early age. But no, I was always writing about books. That's how I understood the world. And that's still how I kind of understand the world. I never really understand stuff until I've written something down. And that's how I think.
Okay.
So I did that through my uni work. I think I did extension to English in year 12. So I wrote a story for that, which was a very autobiographical story about a girl who hates her mum. Crazy. The teachers were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Clearly not."
No. Every year 12 extension to English paper is a cry for help.
Oh, 100%.
Mine was a dark thing about New Age vampires in response to the Twilight fanfare where they didn't sparkle.
That's so, well, it's different then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely...
It's different, yeah.
Definitely different, as my mother said. Well, I do have a lovely relationship with, which meant she read all of my early shit, which... Not the best first reader.
Yeah.
But, lessons learned.
But I think
so. Thanks, Mum.
Yeah,
I
thanks
appreciate
to your
support.
mum. I think my writing education for a more general audience, not for academia, came from I did a lot of journalism jobs for a vast array of interesting newspapers.
Interesting news.
So I was the chief writer at The Beast, which is the Beaches of the East like free newspaper.
Okay.
Goes in your mailbox if you live in like Coogee.
Okay.
And that was fun because
It's called Beast?
It's called The Beast.
Beast.
But we didn't have that many writers, and well, I was really the only writer, but we wanted to pretend that we had more writers, so I would take on different
pen names.
personas
Yeah,
and like
nice.
be different kind of journalists.
And would you write differently for each
Oh
character?
yes, very.
Yeah.
My favorite was like writing in a very ochre man style.
What was his name?
Fuck, I can't even remember. It was probably like Bazar.
Yeah. So you used the nicknames, didn't even give like
Oh yeah, it was a very casual magazine. So that was fun in terms of like role playing. That was quite creative.
Yeah.
And then I also
That's a good education.
It was a really good education. And then my other favourite journalism job, similar realm-ish, in terms of a free newspaper, was Lesbians on the Loose magazine. LOTL is the acronym.
Oof.
And I worked there for a year.
How good.
And that was, I just had to get used to pumping out so much content every day. So in terms of just not being afraid of a blank page, working in journalism for very little money and getting paid per article is a really good incentive to just keep writing.
Yeah, no matter and not worrying about the perfectionism.
No.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. Which I think you're probably at an advantage for having not been like, I want to be a writer growing up, because a lot of times I think that fuses with people's, if not their ego, then at the very least their sense of identity, and like, if I don't do this, then I have failed my childhood self or something. And the fact that, and that causes perfectionism and, a fear of the blank page, or even once you've done the book, you're worrying about the anxiety of the reception, or even getting it, what does success look like after that? And if you just like, just smash this out, like that is a freeing thing.
It is quite freeing, yeah. Also, because I never studied creative writing either. Have you studied creative writing?
Not, only extension to English.
Yeah.
And then went into
but like
business after
Yeah,
that,
right. Like I know that it is really helpful for some people to study creative writing, but I would find that, I think, very stressful.
I guess it would be valuable if you're wanting to write anyway, and you're like, well, might as well. I mean, it's the person. Like I didn't go to UCID, but a professor from UCID ended up doing the blurb for my book, and
Fabulous.
I was like, oh, if they're an author and academic and all that, and I was like, oh, if I had studied creative writing at uni, I'd have a network of professors and other colleagues who then become writers. And I definitely don't have any of that, but I guess it also means you're not in the bubble of it.
Yeah. I also just wouldn't like to compare my work to anyone else's.
Oh, in class.
Yeah.
True.
The idea of having to
Sitting
read
out
a
and reading
story to a bunch of other people who are also trying to write stories and then critiquing each other sounds like my personal idea of hell.
I'm trying to remember. There's a film with and I'm blanking on his name. Wow, who's him? Who's the guy who goes, wow? He's a comedian, American comedian.
Okay.
Anyway, he's in this film where he accidentally slips back into the 20s.
Oh,
like
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson.
Yeah, it's the Hemingway one.
Yeah. And when Hemingway is talking about, he's like, will you read my book? And Hemingway's like, I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. And he's like, how? He's like, well, if it's terrible writing, I will hate it for the craft of it. And if it's fantastic, I'll hate it even more because I'm jealous of you as a writer.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with the egos at that level in a classroom where no one has developed a career or like maybe not any confidence either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's why you're in a creative writing class, right? To build all that. So yeah, I can imagine.
I think maybe if I just had a thicker ego, but I don't think I could cope with a creative writing class.
Well, on that note, do you look at reviews much?
I did when it was first coming out, when Green Up was first coming out, because it was just like such a thrill to think that people were reading
commenting,
it. Like what? And then I then I started to see that obviously there's a bit of a reaction from some readers. This is not reviews, but like Goodreads and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Who like have such like moral opposition to Adultery that they won't engage with the
premise
or the prose, or then they can be quite acerbic in their critiques.
Sorry?
Acerbic.
What does that mean?
Like harsh, like
I'm like acidic.
like sharp.
Like,
Yeah, kind of acidic. Yeah. And I didn't really want to engage with that. That wasn't fun for me. So I kind of stopped reading most reviews. But that being said, my agent, if there's like a really good review, she'll send it through and I'll read it.
So you're not using it as like, oh, did I mess something up here? Or, oh, that's something that's good that I'll use in the next book. Or it's just like, it's a bit of noise in the background.
No, I mean, 'cause as well, I've read like a few reviews that are less complimentary about it, and I just don't necessarily agree with the things that they critique. Not that I think that it's the best book in the world, but their reasoning actually doesn't stand up to it. So I'm like, no, this is not.
That's good though for you, like, because it helps you with your own direction, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I'll just think, I believe good reviews and I don't believe bad reviews.
It's like that sounds the Delulu works right there. And on the note of looking forward and kind of reviewing your own work and how it has been received, what from this experience are you taking into the next one? Whether in craft, whether it's in the publicity and touring element.
I think...
I mean, you've already written the next one, right?
Yeah, yeah, I have. What I've literally took, which I want to say because we don't speak about this enough, is that I got paid enough money for Green Dot that I could then not do another job for 2 years.
2 years?
While I wrote the second book. And that is a huge privilege. And that meant that I could dedicate my working hours to writing a book. And that's how I was able to write it quite fast. And I think it's pretty good. So it's like, oh, that's crazy. If you pay artists, then they'll produce better work. We need to talk about that.
Honestly, gone are the days of the gentry and the aristocracy being patrons and literally paying people that they whose work they like to just, hey, this is your job now.
Exactly.
You make art for me.
Yeah, and like the difference in writing the two was just huge because when I was writing Green Dot, I was working 4 days a week, doing my PhD, like living in a shithole. Life was quite challenging. And now, I mean, life has its challenges, but I
the space.
Have space, and that's everything. So I've taken that.
Indeed. I guess the pressure cooker can help sometimes, but that sounds like you would have been writing at odd hours, and there's no consistency in the craft. Yeah.
I mean, it worked for that time, but I couldn't keep that up in my life. I would go mad.
How long was that process during balancing it all?
About a year.
Well, that's still pretty good that you fit it in. Yeah,
but also it was COVID and I was living by myself.
Sure.
And there were actually a lot of hours in the day at that time.
A lot of green dots on your company computer account.
Exactly.
And no responses,
But in terms of, I think now I've written the second one, I feel a certain sense of a little anxiety has shifted because there's certainly huge anxiety about writing a second book because you think I wrote one, but I don't know how to write another one. What if it was just a fluke, like any musician, etc.?
Yeah, first album. Yeah.
Yep. So that's been a huge relief.
I did it.
Just
that. Yeah.
I'm like, I did it. So that means that I can probably write a third one.
My editor didn't shoot me down.
Yeah,
completely.
They didn't. Oh, yeah. Obviously, that's the fear when you hand it in. They're like, that they'll just be like, this
we
is
did not pick the right
trash.
horse.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you.
So
she was the right horse, ladies and gentlemen.
We'll see. But in terms of what else I would take with me, I don't know. I mean, publicity people are so good at publicity. They just do their jobs, and I just kind of rock up to things like this. I don't think I have it in me to really be more like brand focused. That's not really my energy. Yeah.
So you'll be happy just pumping out books in the background,
Yeah. I really respect people who do that and hustle and like make themselves public figures, but
YouTube personalities.
Yeah. And love it and like it works, but I don't think I could do it.
Oh, and if you don't need to, and if it's not
Well, we'll
aligned with, see how well the next book, how much publishers like,
in like a year's time,
one.
you'll be like seeing me on like every YouTube platform available.
Please, buy this 4th book. I mean, that's also a big lesson for me. And if you have to follow what's genuine for you as well. And you've had a good success with this, regardless of the next one, you'll just be able to run another one anyway, right?
Well, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, it's about, this sounds cheesy, but it is about being genuine. Like, I think that's why people have responded to the book, because it's real.
We can set, like, the prose is conversational. That's why I said it was as if it was adapted from journal entries, and I know other reviews are like, oh, it just sounds like I'm chatting to one of my girlies and all that. So is that, but you're saying your new narrator for the next book, Chosen Family, is that campy, omniscient third person, but sounds like you're still playing with that.
It's it's still fun and like kind of girly adjacent for sure.
Which, in terms of branding,
I mean, the main thing I've learned from Green Dot is that like I'm obsessed with the girlies. I love the girlies. The girlies are my people.
There you go.
My sister's just like shocked because she's like much like cooler than me. Just like such a cool girly. She was just like, the shameless girls like you. What the fuck?
Yeah. Where's this credit coming? Like street cred coming from? Right? It's coming from the work. And in terms of crafting the new book, was there anything like that because especially given the fact that you weren't a writer of fiction before this, before the Green Dot, and I noticed when I wrote my debut, I realized I just didn't have any of the stuff I'd learnt in high school or crafty stuff like front of mind, and then the edit was like, oh, should I need to learn how to write? Like I innately what's happening, but like it does help to have some framework around that, or to go, oh yeah, there are these concepts. And I guess you probably would have had some of that up front from your literary studies and even the criticism. So how much of that was part of the process for Green Dot, and is that different to the period of writing Chosen Family?
I think it's all a bit more like kind of subconscious, really. I think it's about osmosis in terms of reading and writing. Like, I have read and critiqued so many books for like a decade.
It's like, if I can't write one by now,
like I should know.
It's like, I'm not a good critic if I can't also write a good book.
Yeah, but
where's
also
my taste gone, right?
Oh, exactly. But
you're putting 2 careers on the line with this.
Oh my God, absolutely, I know. But so nothing's so conscious as kind of thinking what are the rules of a book and what themes do I want to think about. But I think I really just started Green Dot with a premise, which is, why does someone do something that's a really shitty idea? Like, why do we self-sabotage, really? And then this new one was just an idea. It was like, what does family look like now? And that's actually all it was. and then I just start writing a scene anywhere. Doesn't matter where it is. I'll just like start, like I'll put a character in a place.
See what it feels like.
And then it goes from there.
So
and then
not an outliner.
God, no. No, absolutely not. This one was a bit trickier, Chosen Family, because it works on 2 timelines. So it's a bit more of my mental energy was used remembering what had just happened 20 years before, kind of thing.
So there were a couple of notes on the side? Or not?
I had one Word document that had like 5 points, like this happened in 1982 or whatever.
So that the fantasy authors out here are like, what? You don't have a whole wiki of world building? Interesting, lovely. Is that feeling of discovery writing, is that part of the fun for you as well? Just like, I don't know what's about to happen next, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I assume it is for you. It's so much fun.
I'm a combo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll have a bit of structure or like an idea of where it's going, but yeah, you got to bridge you get A, maybe B, an idea of where Z is, and and then you go from
there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm being a little facetious. Obviously, I knew who the characters were. I knew how it ended. And then I kind of worked back from there. But yeah, it's just so much. It's fun to be in your own brain sometimes because you're just like, what is this?
Yeah,
like, where did that come from?
These dreams and nightmares come from?
Just like, one day I just looked up from my laptop and I realized I'd been writing about pubic hair for 7 hours. It's like, what? That's not a big part of my consciousness generally, I didn't think.
And yet
that's what came up, and that's still in the book, You
heard it here first, y'all. If you like reading about and writing about pubes, this one's for you. Among other themes and topics and bits of content. I want to, we're coming up to the end of our lovely chat. I've been having lots of fun. Barely looking at notes here because it's flying from one bit to the other. But I do want to quickly touch on the business side a little bit. I know you said, it's not really a big focus for you like it might be for some other more hustly kind of authors. And that's both genuine for you, but, you've also, self-confessed had a dream run in terms of that first.
Yeah.
In terms of the first deal. But I want to point out the fact that you still had to do a cold email. Yeah. You still made the effort of reaching out. So, there was Grace Heifetz.
Yeah, that's right.
It was Laugh-Back Literary that she had with Gabby Naho. Now she's started A4.
Great research.
Which I had to not call it A24.
Yeah, I know. It's tricky. Film. I did say that to her.
It's a bit of clout though. It's like, oh, okay, that's similar position.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly.
So congratulations to the A4 team kicking off, because that's only just happened.
Yes, they're at the London Book Fair right now doing their first book fair. They're having a lot of fun, the fantastic. A4 team.
But she was at the London Book Fair a couple of years ago. That's when you got the cold email to her.
Yeah.
Were there other agents that you cold emailed?
I had interest from one other agent who reached out to me after I was shortlisted for the Walkley. And they said, are you writing anything else? And so I knew, I was very excited by that.
But the Walkley wasn't for fiction.
No, it was for criticism, but they said kind of,
you got a tone.
You got any fiction?
Yeah.
You got any fiction?
Got something to make us money, please.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like it's not so crazy. Like maybe I could actually get an agent.
The leap is not,
because before that it does feel like quite insurmountable.
Until someone's knocking on the door, Yeah,
and I was like, all right. And then, that agent was lovely, but I just, vibe-wise, it just didn't quite click. I didn't feel that vibe. But I knew I had this project, so a friend suggested I get in touch with Grace. And she said, I think you'd like her. You should send her your book.
Was that Jen?
Yes, actually, it was. Yeah.
Sydney Writers Festival.
Yeah, Sydney Writers Festival represent.
Jen, shout out.
Jen McGrath, the CEO of the Sydney Writers Festival.
Don't tell her boss that.
Anne would like it. So I reached out to Grace, sent her an email, go, is this anything? Like, hi, I'm Maddie. I exist. Is this anything? And then, like a day later.
Sorry, was that a pitch or a full manuscript?
It was a pitch. It was a pitch. So it was maybe three paragraphs describing who I was, what I'd done, the plot in a paragraph, and then the themes and comparisons with other books, because publishers always love that. They want to know
how to sell it.
Yes. So they want to hear it's Patricia Lockwood meets Sally Rooney meets whatever.
But you didn't give an excerpt or anything.
I didn't give her an excerpt.
You were selling it all on.
I just wanted to see if that was something she was curious about, and she said, actually, yes, I'd love to read that. So I just sent it to her, like the whole manuscript, and she read it very quickly. She's a fast reader, that Grace, and within like 2 days she said, excellent, I'd like to sell this now at the London Book Fair.
And I guess that's also just the circumstance of the timing, right?
Yeah.
Like she just happened to be at a convention
so
ready
serendipitous.
where that's what the job is when you're at those conventions.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It has been a dream run, and I'm very aware that it's not the usual run. So I'm extremely lucky.
You got to do the work.
You do have to do the work, but then it's also nice when fate
The run is
kind of just
dreamy.
like gives
yeah.
you something nice.
Yeah. 100%. And how has that experience, you know, like you said, you're just happy for the PR crew to tell you where to go and when.
Yeah.
Has there been much that you've had to give input in terms of the international deals, cover art, anything like that? Or have you just kind of let Grace just go for it with everything?
I mean, I've definitely had a say in, you know, who I sign with, because like you sign with, ideally, different territories. So you've got like an Australian deal, then you can have a UK deal, US deal, they're all different territories. And then translations are different as well. So you want to pick which publisher seems to match your energy.
And you're basing that off not just their back catalogue, but also the personalities.
The personalities, absolutely. Yeah. And like who the publisher is working at the publishing house at that time. You want to chat with them and see if you like them, because you have to have someone in a publishing house who's going to champion your book, because they can buy it and
and leave it on the shelf.
Yeah. You need someone who's going to.
Or like you get the person that is in love with it and they're like, yeah, I'm only here for another 6 months before I moved somewhere else.
Exactly, which happens in publishing all the time.
You've lost your champion.
Yes, exactly. So that's that's a stressful thing. In terms
you had a reaction there as if that.
Oh yeah, no, just my Australian publisher Jane moved from my Green Dot publisher Allen and Unwin to Simon and Schuster, which is another publisher, and this is like common news now, so it's fine. But I have made the decision to go with Jane to Simon and Schuster, which is a really big decision because I love Allen and Unwin, and it's really tricky when you're kind of picking something like this, because you have loyalty to all kinds of different people. But my loyalty is to Jane. She's an excellent publisher. So that's some good advice, I think. If you find a publisher that you love, stick with them.
As in the human publisher.
The human publisher who works at the publisher. Exactly.
Yeah. Go for the human.
Yeah, because you have to spend a lot of time with these people as well. You want them to be friends. You want to love and respect them, and I do with all the people I work with.
So when you say Jane as the publisher, is she also your editor at the publishing house? Yeah,
so she'll be doing edits, and my situation's a little different than most because I am selling like 3 territories at once. So that means that I have a publisher / editor from each territory all
in the room
or in the Word document. So I have 3 edits going at once in a Word document.
And the track changes are a bit
they're
all over
chaos.
the
They're
shop.
pure chaos. Yeah, it's a lot.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a new experience as well.
Yes, yeah.
Not as many notes as the screenplay, but
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of, I'm used to track changes. That's fine. That's very academic. I can deal with that. It's more just emails. I hate emails.
I've gathered from from the book. Maddie, we're coming up to our, we usually go a little bit over the hour here at Hot Nerds. I've got a couple quick questions still I'd love to fit in. We've been talking about, you wrote a lot of this during isolation. Before the session, you joked that Hong Kong was refreshing because it's not the same 20 writers that you know in Australia. Do you have a writerly community around you?
Not so much, actually. I've never been part of a writing group or anything like that. I have toured the book and done festivals and stuff. I am friendly with many writers. But no, most of my friends just have different jobs. They just do all kinds of things. And I personally love that because it means I actually get to learn about the world from them and, get to experience the world through their eyes. Whereas, if I was just hanging out with writers, all the time, I think we'd all get very sick of each other because we wouldn't have any new experiences.
Indeed, yeah. Well, and if you're getting successful, a lot of these writers then become full-time, and it's not like they're juggling with some other crazy career path or anything like that. Do you feel like you want more connection in that space, or is it like, I've got a team now on the publishing side that kind of fills that?
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, it's just funny, a team. Funny to think of myself having a team.
Do you see it as
my
that?
team? Sure, yeah. I've got a team.
I've got a team.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of
talk to my people.
dirty assistants that do shit for me. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Grace. Don't listen to me. That's not her words.
I really respect women.
Yeah.
I thought for a long time that I wanted to hang out with more writers, to know more writers. But I think friendships are just so organic, and I think consciously trying to like seek someone out to be friends with them based on what you do for work, it's not really my angle. That being said, like now knowing more writers than I did before is lovely. It's lovely to have like a beer with someone and just kind of chat about the very specific things that you have to deal with in your profession, like in any workplace, that's fun.
And it's a workplace of passion and your choice, right? As opposed to the soul crushing elements that are in Green Dot.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, actually, I don't know that many writers. Sorry.
Oh, no, don't apologize. It's all good. This is not a test.
No, I'm like, should I be like, yes, I am best friends
with all of them.
With Helen Garner and Christos Chalkis.
It's so good. Hey, live your best life. And I think, again, coming back to what some of the points we were talking about at the beginning around being genuine, and that's the core of it, right? Just be true to yourself and your people.
Yeah, exactly.
And your team.
And always be good to your team.
Be good to the team. They're not dirty assistants. They're making the dream come true for you and funding our rent. Thank you to the team. Is there anything that you've learned either through writing this or just in life or talking to people about the book around validation and internal validation versus external validation and the role that love or just lust can play in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hera's fatal flaw, among many, is that she requires validation from a lover to feel like she is a whole person. And the whole book essentially is about her maybe getting to a point where that's no longer the case. I think that talking to people about this book has reminded me of just how lost so many of us are, especially in our 20s, and the truly insane ways we will not value ourselves when we think that we might get approbation or validation from someone who isn't us. And someone once asked me, they said, what do you hope for Hera after the book finishes? And I think my answer kind of gets to this, which is I just want her to find happiness and I want her to find joy and contentment in something that isn't a person. Because I think that, relationships are so important and wonderful, but before you can be a good partner to someone else, you have to be a full person on your own.
It's not two halves make a whole.
I don't think so.
Two wholes come together.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's, again, cheesy, but I think that's not something I've always known.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheesy. It's something that we're all trying to decondition ourselves from.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And it's been amazing for me going through this, talking about this book as well, because, I met my partner just before Green Dot came out, maybe like 6 months before it came out, so like a few years back. And she's an amazing artist in her own right and has her own life, and I have my own life. And it's been really nice to talk about this terrible relationship while I've actually been in a lovely one. It
100%.
feels pretty good.
Shout out Birdie Black.
Shout out Birdie. Yeah.
And why didn't you give her something else? Because you do end it kind of, she finally says fuck off to Arthur again, not a massive spoiler, but you're saying you hope that she does find something. Why didn't you give her that in the book? Is it left open-ended for a particular reason?
Yeah, I think the importance of the ending for me was not so much like, let's present her with the thing that's going to make her whole. The really important thing was to detach her vision from the one place she'd been staring, because I think that's what lust is. It's an inability to look away from one very specific spot, and it blinds you to everything else. And so Hera's like moment of, the big like huzzah moment at the end of the book really is simply moving her vision, something as small as that.
Paying attention to the right things in life.
Yeah.
We just don't necessarily see what those things are going to be, but we're left on that.
But she's
moment.
looking now at least, and that's important.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a lovely note to end on. Everyone, Green Dot is probably going to be out of the news cycle soon.
Like, no.
But chosen family.
And it begins again.
Yes, the cycle continues in the best way possible. How are you feeling about like maybe not talking about this for a while now?
I feel like I have probably said everything I have to say about this book.
Hopefully some of that was new today.
It was all new today. Nothing that I said today has ever been said before. I was really saving it for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But it'll be nice to have some new talking points.
Well, maybe I'll catch you at the very end of your next promotional cycle.
And I'll be like, fuck queer family. I'm sick of it.
I'm writing this next one just about straight people.
Yeah.
Which we love.
We love them.
I was one of them
My
back in the
dad's
day.
a straight man. Yeah.
There you go. I was straight.
Cool.
Was I?
That's up to you.
We'll never know. On such mysterious notes, we'll end on. Thank you so much, Madeleine Gray, author of The Green Dot and Chosen Family, and many more to come.
Thank you. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you so much. Hot nerds, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Hot Nerds podcast. We don't host ads, but if you find any value in what our team does, please feel free to support us via the links in our show notes or buy my book, as it greatly assists with producing this show. Thank you again. See you soon. Stay hot, stay nerdy.